Welcome to date number 2, background histories. I'll be filling you in with some of my answers to the questionnaires as examples, and this section deals with background histories. And the author starts off with a quote: "A person who marries with the intent of changing his or her spouse later is doomed to disappointment and potential divorce." Before the date, spend 1 to 2 hours to individually answer questionnaires 1, 2, and 3. And this should take about 3 hours on this date. After, at home alone, record in your journal at the end of this link the reactions to this session. Do you have concerns? Write them down. Are these warning signs of future problems? Reflect on those insights and continue that discourse. Instructions. Again, try to make the date relevant to the subject to be discussed. Use your imagination. Here's one suggestion. Plan a date to the library. Find a corner far away from the librarian, tucked away from the other patrons, where you'll be free to write and talk in low voices. If you find that it is too hard to discuss each topic there, go to a coffee house, donut shop, or fast food restaurant where you can order something inexpensive and talk for hours. Family background. Questionnaire number 1. Describe your relationship with your father. I have a good relationship with my father. Describe your relationship with your mother. We watch Netflix every night. I have a good relationship with my mother. What are the strengths of your father? He's caring. He's strong. What are the strengths of your mother? She's smart, she's eloquent, she cooks, she has good taste and good humor. What are the weaknesses of your father? My father can sometimes procrastinate. What are the weaknesses of your mother? She thinks she's always right and can have a sharp tone. Are you more like your mother or your father? I'll let you answer that yourself. What are the strengths that you feel you have inherited from your father? I'm strong and caring as well. What are the weaknesses that you feel you have inherited from your father? I hope I have not inherited procrastination. What are the strengths that you feel you've inherited from your mother? I have humor. What are the weaknesses that you inherited from your mother? I think I'm always right. How do you want to not be like your father? I don't want to divorce my wife, and I don't like his pick for his new wife, so I would choose a better companion. How do you not want to be like your mother? Do you have any unresolved resentments towards your mother or father? Describe. Nope, all resentments have been resolved. If you have resentments, how do you resolve them? We don't. We communicate and avoid divorce. How can you avoid taking these resentments into your marriage? What qualities in your parents' marriage do you want to duplicate in your own? What qualities do you want to avoid? Once again, I want to avoid divorce and non-communication. Does your partner have any positive or negative traits of either of your parents? What are they? List challenges that your parents had to face, such as financial loss, being out of work, medical issues, death of a loved one, other crises. Describe how they responded to them emotionally and/or intellectually. How did they resolve them? My stepbrother died. We acknowledged that he died in his sleep and moved on. So that was a loss of life. How did your parents' problems affect your life? How did you deal with these issues? How have you resolved them? Have you resolved them now? List problems you encountered in your family, such as abuse, neglect, rivalry, accidents, moving to a new school, etc. Have you resolved these issues and problems? If so, how? If not, what will you do to resolve them now? Do you disagree or agree with the methods your parents used to solve their problems, and why? My father sweeps it under the rug, so I don't really agree with that method. How do you usually solve conflicts and problems in your life? Is it the same as your parents or different? I try to use the Bible to solve conflicts in my life. When you get together on your date, discuss the following 2 questions. Write down your answers, and for number 3, write out your plan together. The questions are: based on your responses to the questions above, do you agree or disagree with the kind of marriage relationship that you want to have? In what way? Have you come to an agreement or compromise? Discuss and decide on a plan to resolve problems that may arise in your future marriage. Once again, there's a link you can download these questionnaires and fill them in yourself. Cultural background. Describe the role of your father and mother in your cultural background. This may be religious culture that you come from, such as Jewish, Christian, Buddhist, Muslim, or a country's culture, such as India, Iran, Nigeria, or Mexico, where daily life may be very different from the United States. There even may be cultural differences within the same country. I grew up Mormon in California. Do you want your future husband or wife to fulfill the same cultural role described in question number 1? What are your expectations? I don't expect them to be Mormon. I follow Aslan now. It stands for accountability symbology, like alpha numerology. And check out my Bible summaries if you're interested in the Bible. When you get together on your date, discuss your answers about cultural backgrounds. Then discuss and answer the following questions together. Are you completely aware of each other's cultural background? If not, what do you need to do to be more fully understanding of each other in this area? How are your cultural lifestyles and related values similar or different? Do your cultural backgrounds conflict in any regard to basic philosophies, e.g. family, career, politics, religion, etc.? How is there conflict? Do you foresee any other issues or problems with cultural differences? What are they? If you have discovered potential conflicts, how can you compromise? Date 2. Concepts to consider. Part 1. If your partner cannot accept your culture and refuses to accept the roles dictated by it, are you prepared to abandon your culture without resentment to live as he or she wants you to live? If not, you may need to break off your engagement and seek a husband or wife who will support your cultural values and roles. Weigh the pros and cons. If you decide to marry regardless of differences, accept the decisions you made together and never look back. If you're still worried and think you should go along with your mate's desires for now, and then insist on him or her following your cultural roles and lifestyle after the marriage, think again. This choice will inevitably end in unhappiness and a potential divorce. For example, Janelle was ecstatic the day Amon proposed marriage on top of the Seattle Space Needle. He was tan, muscular, oozed with charm. She was tall, willowy, and delicate. They met by happenstance. Janelle, eager to finish her first apartment in style, wandered into a small Persian carpet store in Pioneer Square advertising 50% off. Amon waited on her. It was love at first sight as they gazed into each other's eyes. Buying the carpet became secondary as the man asked her to dinner that night. Amon was very romantic and swept her off her feet. She was head over heels in love. It was a whirlwind courtship, and now they were engaged. It had never dawned on her that Janelle might come from a separate world. He seemed like other all-American boys until Amon drove Janelle home to Los Angeles to meet his mother and father. Amon's mother was the epitome of a professional homemaker. With the father, when the men entertained Janelle, Amon's mother spent hours working in the kitchen preparing exotic Middle Eastern dishes. The weekend, Janelle asked Amon for the first time, "Do you want me to be like your mother? I mean, cook 3 meals a day for you, clean, iron, and mend your clothes?" Amon was stunned by the question. "Why, yes, you don't have to work after we're married. I'll take care of you," he offered lovingly. "But I want to work," Janelle insisted. "I'm a career girl, not a homemaker." After all of the romance, it was difficult to face reality. They were talking about each other's expectations of culturals in a marriage, and they were very different. At the end of the weekend, they separated with heated words. Later, Amon called Janelle on the phone. "Janelle, I love you. Let's not let something so unimportant come between us. Let us put our differences aside until after we're married. Our love is stronger whether or not you stay home." "You're right. Love can conquer all," she acquiesced. The wedding plans continued until they were married in a lovely garden ceremony in her parents' backyard overlooking Mount Rainier. What happened after the wedding? Did it end happily ever after? I wish I could report that it did. Unfortunately, Janelle and Amon failed to do their homework. Because they didn't work out a plan before the wedding, heated arguments occurred again. When Amon asked Janelle to quit her job and stay home, she refused. 3 months later, stressed out by her new husband's incessant harassing, she resigned from work and assumed the role of a full-time housekeeper and lover. Now at home all the time, Janelle wanted to join an exercise club. Amon wouldn't allow it. He thought that it wasn't proper now that she was married. He wouldn't let her volunteer for charity organizations, and he refused to allow her the opportunity to join a bridge club with her friends. He insisted on homemade cooking every day. She learned to please him with all his favorite foods. But after the first and then second baby was born, Amon became more controlling than ever. In Amon's culture, the man worked in the world, and the woman stayed at home. He was the decision maker and the patriarch of the family. All who lived under his roof obeyed him. Janelle came from a culture in which her mother was part of every major decision in the household. Her mother and father were a team. The man opened his own carpet store without consulting Janelle. Later, he sold it at great loss. He then jumped right back in it again, opening a dry cleaning store, a business about which he knew almost nothing. Janelle was horrified by how he made decisions, and when her checks were refused at the grocery store, she agonized, thinking that they must be on the verge of bankruptcy. Janelle begged Amon to let her go back to work, or at least help out with the new business. Amon refused. Janelle wanted and needed the stimulation of working outside the home. Since Amon wouldn't let her, she decided she would earn more money by working at home. Janelle thought it would be relatively easy to find a computer work that would be outsourced from her home. Surely her husband would agree. She wouldn't have to leave her two little toddlers. It would be the best of both worlds. Amon refused to give his permission. The thought of her working at all was an insult to his manhood and ability as a breadwinner of the family. 4 years later, the marriage ended in an ugly divorce, with custody battles over their 2 children. If only Janelle and Amon had faced the cultural differences between them prior to marriage. Amon needed a partner but bought into his culture completely. Janelle needed a husband who allowed her to have a life outside of the whole role of homemaker. Another case ended quite differently. Shane came from a traditional Chinese background and was steeped in his family roots. Amy, a New Yorker with Italian ancestry, was excited about the prospects of marrying Chang. They began to plan the wedding, and she purchased her wedding dress. However, as they got to know each other better, they sensed something was wrong. They asked to try my yet untested premarital counseling course. As they proceeded through the course, Chang realized that Amy was not for him. He could see that he really wanted was a clone of his mother. He needed someone from a traditional Chinese background who would be quiet, self-effacing, always working in the home, serving the family, and putting others' needs above her own. Amy was beautiful and Shane loved her, but love was not enough. She was a free-spirited, gregarious woman who lived for her career and nights out with her friends. He knew that the cultural gulf between them was an impediment to a harmonious marriage. Although it was difficult to part, they made the right decision. I have known other marriages where two people come from very different cultural backgrounds work together just fine. In all cases, however, some compromises had to be made to make the marriage work. Know your partner's culture and how it affects him or her. Here's another questionnaire. Religious background. Are you of the same religion? Do you share the same religious values? If the answer is no, do you foresee problems? What problems are possible? If you have the same religion, do you share the same zeal? Will it be a problem? Will differences be a problem? If your religions are different, which church do you plan to attend? In which church would you raise your children? Have you had disagreements over religion? Were the issues in conflict resolved? Do your parents disapprove of your partner's religion? Do you secretly think that you'll convert your partner to your religion after the wedding? Date 2, questionnaire 3 continued. Have you prayed to know if your partner is the right one for you? If so, what were your spiritual feelings after you prayed? How do you feel about voluntary church service? Is it important to you? How about your partner? Can you support your mate if he or she is active in his or her church and gives many hours of service? How do you feel about paying tithes or offerings to the church you attend? How about your partner? Political background and beliefs. How would you describe your political beliefs? Do you identify with a political party? For example, Democrat, Republican, Libertarian, Green, Socialist, or others? Is it important to you that your partner has the same philosophy? Is political activity important to you personally? Have you been involved in protests, petitions, political public speaking, or candidacy for public office? If so, will you want to continue your activities after marriage? If you marry someone with different political beliefs, how will you compromise? Are there some political beliefs that you cannot tolerate? What are they? I would consider myself a very conservative Democrat. Journal date 2. Feel free to journal and check which of the following best describes your experience on this date. Total harmony and agreement from the beginning. Started out with differences and conflicts, but came to a compromise. Still have unresolved differences. What did you learn new on this date? If you have unresolved differences or conflicts, what plans do you have for the resolution?